So as we get ready to prepare ourselves for the upcoming holiday of Shavuos, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks, in about 4 weeks or so, less. The holiday of, actually 3 weeks to be exact. The holiday of Shvuos celebrates the giving of the Torah. That God gave the Jewish people the Torah on Mount Sinai. And so as we get ready for this holiday, we think about what exactly happened when the Jewish people stood at the foot of Mount Sinai, prepared to receive the Torah. And we find a very interesting story. And we find a medrash. So let's read this inside together. The medrash states that the Jews slept the entire night before the giving of the Torah, because sleep on Shvuos is pleasant and the night is short. Not even a flea bit them. What this medrash is telling us is that the night before the Torah was to be given, all the people went to sleep. When God came to give them the Torah the next morning, he found the Jews in a deep slumber and had to rouse them. Those their alarm clocks clearly didn't go off. The animals didn't make any noises. The birds didn't chirp. The roosters didn't crow. Even the flea, as it says, did not bite them, even though they were in the desert. So God came to wake them up. And this is alluded to in the verse, why did I come when no one else was there? I called and there was no answer. This is what the verse tells us, that God called us and nobody answered. And so the question is, what happened? What were the Jewish people thinking? Why would they go to sleep the night before they're about to receive the Torah? This is what happened, and that's the question. So to compensate for this nation's slumber, on the night before the giving of the Torah, it is customary to remain awake on the first night of Shavuos, studying the Torah. Right? Till today, Jewish people study the Torah. A whole night of Shavuos, we stay up and we study to make up for the fact that our ancestors went to sleep the night before Shavuos. So everything that happens in the Torah is a lesson for us, clearly. So this is especially true with regard to the stories that the Torah mentions in an unfavorable light. The question is, why would the Torah tell us a derogatory story about the Jewish people, even though they were on such a high spiritual level? Why would the Torah tell us such a seemingly negative story? Tell us that they went to sleep, right? The Torah only wants to talk nicely about its people. Why would God want to spread a bad rumor about his children? So obviously the fact that God is telling it to us is because there's a reason for it, and there's a lesson that we can learn from it. And in this talk, the Rebbe says the lesson is apparent. And that is that we should compensate for our ancestors' conduct by staying awake the entire night. To communicate this lesson, we have to understand the story a little bit better. And we also have to understand, look what it says over here. It says that because the sleep on Shavuos is unpleasant and night is short, not even a flea bit them. Who made this happen that a flea should not bite them? Clearly it's a miracle from God, right? So if it's a miracle from God, why would God perform a miracle for the Jewish people that are doing something that they shouldn't be doing? They went to sleep because they shouldn't be sleeping. Why would God perform a miracle for them? And so today we stay up the whole night to make up for the fact that they went to sleep. But maybe it wasn't bad that they went to sleep. Maybe they did the right thing that they went to sleep. And the fact that God performed the miracle. And the question makes sense, I think. So it's well known that the promise that they would receive the Torah 50 days after the exodus of Egypt awakened a strong desire within the Jews. With great anticipation, they counted the days until the Torah would be given. And this is the source for the mitzvah of counting the Omer. So we know that the Jewish people are very excited to receive the Torah, right? They said, okay, God is giving us the Torah. We anticipate this arrival of this special gift that you're going to give to us. We cannot wait till it comes. So therefore, we're going to start to count the days 7 weeks beforehand. The Jews could hardly wait to receive the Torah. We can assume that the desire increased as they approached the actual date. They knew God was going to give the Torah on that day. So how's it possible for them to sleep? Think about a trip that you have been preparing for months and months and months, or even weeks, or a certain meeting, right? We're waiting for a few days or for a week. The anticipation only grows that you can sleep more. Not that you can sleep, not that you can go to sleep and sleep soundly. So as we get closer to the meeting, we almost have the jitters that we can't sleep at all. So how could it be when the Jews were counting the days of the Omer, getting closer to the receiving of this special monumental gift that was being given just to them? And again, they knew about how great it is because they were counting it. Moreover, they're counting the 49 days, prepare them for God's great gift. On each of these days, they became more refined and more worthy to receive the Torah. And on each of the 49 days, they drew down one of the 50 gates of understanding. Thus, on the 49th day, they had completing drawing down the 49 gates, which was the maximum possible through the divine service of mortals. For their 50th gate was to be opened by God on Mount Sinai. So one considers that the Jews had a burning desire for the Torah, even while under the influence of Egypt's 49 gates of impurity. We can understand how overwhelming the desire must have been by the time they had refined themselves in drawing down the 49 gates. So if this was the case, that they so understood the holiness and the preciousness of that which they are receiving from God, so the question is even stronger. How could it, and understand it's making themselves worthy of God's gift? So with such a great desire, does it make sense that the people would go to sleep? That's the question, right? We are forced to conclude that even while sleeping, they did not take their minds off the giving of the Torah. Indeed. So that's the question. The answer is that therefore we must say that the fact that they went to sleep was totally different than we understand the idea of sleep. So the question is for us, when you go to sleep, does your mind open up more, or does your mind close more? In other words, are you more open to receiving a brainstorm while you're sleeping, or less likely to receive a brainstorm while you're sleeping? Right? Think about it. When we go to sleep, how do we respond to the sleep? Do it become just a piece of meat or whatever? Or do we become a heightened awareness to our surrounding on a more refined level, not such a limited level that we're normally on during the day? Many times when people have a tough question, or they're at a roadblock, or they're not sure what to do, so what do? They go to sleep. Why do they go to sleep? You would think that you want to think more. And the answer is because you go to sleep because you want to relax your mind, you want to relax your brain almost, not to close it, but in a way to open up the pores of your brain. So now you're more susceptible to finding the answer. But it can also work for the opposite, because sometimes when we want to understand something and we go to sleep, sometimes the subject matter eludes us and we can't even think to what we were trying to figure out before. So how does sleep really work? Is it to our benefit or to our detriment? And that was the question the Jewish people faced when they stood at the foot of Mount Sinai. Here they were, recognizing the holiness of the receiving of the Torah. They recognized that God is giving them a gift that they waited for, they counted for, they anticipated, they refined themselves and prepared themselves for this moment, yet they went to sleep. So what were they thinking when they went to sleep? We must say that they went to sleep in preparation for this event, for the giving of the Torah. It can't be that they did it for selfish reasons. So this is indicated by the fact that the fleas did not bite them. How do we know they did it? For spiritual reasons, for proper reasons, from the fact that a miracle occurred to them, that the fleas did not bite them. If going to sleep was a deviation from the Torah, God would not have wrought a miracle to enable them to sleep so soundly. The fact that he did implies that this sleep was also part of the nation's preparation. So the question is, what exactly is that preparation? Make sense? So the Alter Rebbe explains that no matter how high a level of understanding a person achieves, or how deep an attachment to godliness is, since each soul exists within a body, there's no way that a mortal can attain the kind of connection to God that the soul enjoyed or enjoys while it's within the confines of a limited physical material body. The human body simply cannot contain or cannot absorb such holiness. We know that when a prophet wanted to receive his prophecy from God, so the sages tell us that the prophet had to go into a trance or a trance-like state of being. Sometimes it says a prophet could not stand, they had to sit or lie down. They had to, some of them went into a deep meditative state. Some played music. Every prophet had a different method. But essentially, the purpose of all the methods was the same: to get rid of the physical constraints of the body, to not allow the physical body to inhibit our unlimited growth or unlimited expansion. Because the body is so confined that we're limited to its size or shape or whatever it is, but we're really much bigger than that. We're much greater than that. And so sometimes we have to break out of the limitations of the body. But it's the body, we're in it. So therefore we have to figure out ways to be in the body and yet be able to surpass the limitations of the body. So a prophet, by going into a meditative state or a trance-like state, is able to lead it. There's a story that is told of the Moshe Rebbe that he had to go through an operation. And he had an allergic reaction to anesthesia. And the doctor didn't know what to do. They had to put him under in order to perform this operation. So he was a Baal Menaged. He was a singer, a composer. So he told him, he says, listen, I'm going to sing a certain song. When I reach a certain part of the song, you can operate me at that time. I won't know what you're doing. That's exactly what happened. He began to sing the song. And when he reached a certain point, they began to operate on him. They did the operation, and it was successful. Afterwards, they asked, so what exactly happened? So it's very simple. So when I sing this song, I go into a very deep meditative state that I don't even feel my body. So it's possible for a human being to experience that. So if this is the case, when a person sleeps, the soul disengages itself from the body on the screen, right? The soul disengages itself from the body to a certain degree and ascends to the spiritual realm, leaving only a trace of vitality in the body. What happens when we go to sleep? We know that only 1/60th of us is alive. We're in a semi-comatose state. We're alive, but we're not alive. Our soul is there, but it's keeping us alive, but it's somewhat not there. Therefore, the sleeper's soul can grasp a higher level of godliness than it can while it is awake and while it's functioning within the body. Right? This is what happens. So the person goes to sleep, we become a little bit more refined, or in Yiddish it's called edel. We become a little less coarse, a little less attached to our body, to our limitations, and we therefore open up ourselves to much greater spiritual height. In fact, like we said many times, some of the great answers that we look for come to us while we're sleeping. Wake up in the middle of the night, we say, oh, that was a brilliant idea. We have to write it down or whatever. So for this reason, those people who devote themselves to study of Torah during the day, they receive the revelation of study at night. At times, matters left unresolved become clear in the morning. And this is why the Jews went to sleep before the giving of the Torah. They wanted their souls to become disengaged from the realm of corporeal experience and thus be able to grasp even higher spiritual levels. And this, they thought, would better prepare them for the revelations to be experienced at the giving of the Torah. Makes sense. All they wanted to was to receive the Torah. After all, this is what they prepared for. They were excited about it. So they said, what better way to experience it by going to sleep? A brilliant idea. We will then not be limited to our physical bodies, and we can open ourselves up to spiritual happenings or spiritual revelations. If this is the case, why were the Jewish people punished? They had a great idea. That's what they wanted to do. So why would they be punished for this? Yeah. How were they punished? Because till today, we stay up for the whole night of Shvuos. And we see that God, when he came to wake them up, he was not pleased that they were sleeping. So if it's such a good thing to go to sleep, what was the problem? And here lies, I think, a very deep and fundamental Jewish principle. How do we see ourselves, and how do we see our mission, and how to serve God? And he says like this: God was not pleased with the sleep of the Jewish people before the receipt of the Torah. For this was not the proper manner in which to approach the event. So he's going to explain now. As mentioned on many occasions, the giving of the Torah was a new development in comparison to the observance of the mitzvahs of the patriarchs. What happened when God gave us the Torah on Mount Sinai? He gave us the laws, the 613 commandments. Now, we all know that all the commandments were already fulfilled before the Torah was given. It says that Abraham fulfilled all the mitzvahs, Isaac, Jacob, all the 12 tribes, they all fulfilled all the commandments, right? We know he circumcised, Shavuos, kosher, all these things. So what exactly happened when God gave us the Torah? Or better yet, why did God need to give us the Torah if we already fulfilled all the mitzvahs? We already knew what the commandments were. What exactly happened when God gave us the Torah? And so we are told, and this is why I titled the class, Emerging of the Two Worlds. So what happened was that when Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob fulfilled the commandments, let's say they used a physical object to fulfill a mitzvah, that physical object remained a physical object after they did the mitzvah. Okay? So if I take a book and I pray with it, right? When I'm done praying with it, I can't just throw the book in the garbage. It absorbs some degree of holiness. So I have to bury it if I want to discard of it. I can't just throw it out like anything else. If I have tefillin, it retains a certain degree of holiness. When we light the Shabbat candles, there's something holy going on when I'm lighting those candles. Before the Torah was given, that didn't happen. Before the Torah was given, when a physical object was used to do a mitzvah, the spiritual part of it connected them to God, true, but the physical object had no holiness to it, did not absorb any holiness. Until God gave the Torah, there was God in the heavens and us down on earth. When God gave the Torah, he merged the two worlds, meaning to say that now we do a mitzvah, we infuse holiness into the physical object. When we do a mitzvah, we soar on high and connect to God. there's a fusion of holiness and materialism. Until God gave us a Torah, there was a complete separation between what is holy and what is physical. What is physical remained physical, what is holy remained holy. But once the Torah was given, there was a connection. The holiness traveled from upwards, downwards, and the physical object was able to be uplifted to a holy receptacle. So after the giving of the Torah, inside now, the mitzvahs will have a permanent effect in the physical substances with which everywhere performed, imbuing, with which they were performed, imbuing them with holiness. So once the Torah was given, now, like we just said, there is a physical, permanent holiness that is now infused into this physical object. Okay? So the peak of our divine service is achieved, and here's the key, not by abandoning the body, but by involving it. Until the Torah was given, we viewed the physical as an obstacle or maybe a vehicle to attain holiness. But the physical object had nothing to do with the holiness, nothing to do with God. There was God, and then there was the physical world. There was me, and there was God. I'm going to do something that God wants. It was given. The body was not an obstacle to holiness, but it was actually a part of the service, part of the way to achieve holiness. Or as he says here, not by abandoning the body, but by involving it. It is through such efforts that a connection is established with God's essence through using the material things that God gave us in this world. This, by the way, this is a very novel idea, because even after Chassidism came around and teaches us this idea, many people still do not appreciate this, because we know that people say, in order to attain holiness, I have to maybe seclude myself to the top of a mountain. I have to divorce myself from any physical contact of physical luxuries. But Judaism says not so. Judaism says that the physical world actually is part of our way to attain a greater degree of holiness. And it's through such effort that a connection is established with God's essence. This cannot be achieved by non-corporeal soul indeed. That the divine service carried out within the body is so great that God and the heavenly court make themselves dependent on the rulings of a mortal court. As God tells us, you have triumphed over me, my children, for the Torah is not in the heavens. There's a law in Jewish law that goes like this, that if there's a argument or a disagreement how to interpret a certain law, so we have to go to a physical sage, a court, a Jewish court, and we have to ask them how to interpret the law. And the question is, perhaps these human beings may get the law wrong. Who says that the law that they're interpreting is accurate? Maybe they're going against God's desire of how the law should be interpreted. And in fact, this is what happened. There's a story that is told in the Talmud that Rabbi Yeshua and the sages were arguing about a specific story, and the story is regarding an oven. There was an oven that had like a multi-layered oven, and there was something that was impure that was put into the oven, and the sages were arguing whether this oven becomes impure or not. And so most of the sages says that it's impure, even though the oven has several compartments to it, the whole thing becomes impure. Rabbi Yeshua says it was pure. And they were arguing back and forth, back and forth. Finally, they said, okay, So Rabbi Shvuos said, I'll prove to you that I'm right. And he says that may the tree that is standing right over there move 100 feet. And it moved. The tree moved. So the sage says, we're not impressed by it. Because you performed the miracle doesn't impress me that you're right. And so Rabbi Shvuos said, okay, let the river that is flowing downwards, let it flow backwards. And that happened. The sages said, you may be a great sage and a great miracle worker. We're not impressed. So he said, may the wall of this house that we're studying, which was starting to tip over, may it stand upright. And that's what happened. Again, they said, we're not impressed. So finally he said, may the voice of heaven come down and say that I'm right. And sure enough, a voice of heaven was heard, and everybody heard it, that the sages should listen to Yeshua, for his opinion is correct. So the sages said, thank you very much. Voice from heaven that tells us to listen to Yeshua. However, we know a basic principle in Judaism, and that is that the Torah is not in heaven. When God gave the Torah to us mortal men, God said we have the power to decide and to rule as to whether something is pure or impure, kosher or not kosher. And because we're the majority, and the Torah says that the majority is the correct opinion, therefore all the miracles mean nothing. And therefore we're going to follow the opinion of the majority and not that of Rabbi Yeshua. As soon as they declared this, a voice from heaven came and said that my children, you have outsmarted me. My children, you have won. My children, you have won. What happened over here? A voice from heaven came. Miracles heard. God had to have agreed that this great sage was correct. How could it be that the sages argued with the voice from heaven? And the answer is because once God gave us the Torah, God is telling us the Torah now is down here on earth. The Torah is our Torah. The Torah belongs to us. The Torah is no longer in heaven. We have the power, but not just the power. We have the responsibility to take the Torah and interpret it for our physical world that we live in. The Torah is not given to the angels. The Torah is given to us mortal human beings. And once that happens, it's our responsibility to learn the Torah according to those precepts. So based upon this, we have to now go back to our discussion. Our discussion is the Jewish people went to sleep before the giving of the Torah, and we explained that the reason why they went to sleep was because they wanted to attain a higher degree of spiritual refinement or escape the body that is limiting their spiritual growth. Alter Rebbe and Chassidic tells us to the contrary, that you attain spiritual growth not by abandoning the body, but by involving it. So since the purpose of the giving of the Torah was to accentuate the advantage of the divine service, performed while the soul is enclosed in the body, the preparatory service must parallel that objective. Not to sleep and rise above the body, but to work with it. And so before we read 7, so there are those who ask, why must I have anything to do with the darkness of the world? Okay, very nice explanation that I should, instead of running away from the body, I should involve it, right? I should not sleep to rise above the body, but to work with the physical world. How often is it that when we come encounter with somebody that seems like someone that's subjecting to us, how do we respond to it? We run away from them. We break up the friendship. I don't need you to tell me no. But instead of doing that, we have to embrace that person. So instead of running away from our body, the Torah is telling us we have to embrace our body. What does it mean, embrace our body? Embrace the physical world and utilize it to reach a greater degree of holiness. But the question still remains, why? After all, the body's a physical thing. The material objects can inhibit our growth. In fact, we know that when we have physical things, you know what we want? We want another physical thing. When we have a phone, we're not happy with the phone. We want a nicer phone. We have a car. We don't just need a car to get us from point A to point B. We want a better car, a fancy car, more expensive car, a bigger house, whatever it is. So once we begin to engage in material things, there's a chance that we're going to be pulled into the hole of continuously wanting more and more material objects. So perhaps those that refrain and live a life of seclusion and abandonment of physical things are correct, because they don't have the test of maybe being pulled down and looking for more physical things. So who says that this is the correct way? Why do I have to become involved in material things? I would rather cut myself off and devote myself to studying of Torah undisturbed. Who wouldn't rather sit on top of a mountain their whole day and meditate without having any physical disturbances? And this approach is true and tested before the giving of the Torah. Before God came down on Mount Sinai, they're correct. Do you know what profession Abraham was in? Isaac was in. Jacob was in. All the tribes were in. The profession was, they were shepherds. Why were they shepherds? That's the best job for a sage. You're in the wilderness, you're taking care of your animals, no one's disturbing you, no one's fighting with you, no one's arguing with you, or you're taking care of these calm, nice sheep and shoo away any animal that wants to kill them. That's the best thing. They can meditate a whole day. Beautiful. Even King David thought that that was the best profession. That's what he was also. Till God came and said, very nice. It's a good profession up until now. Now you have to face the reality of the world. You have to be a king. You have to live in a palace. You have to engage in material things. Why? Because that is the ultimate way we can achieve our highest spiritual calling. Not by living a life of seclusion, living a life away from everybody, but by engaging in the real world, in the real business world, meeting people. That's how you can attain the greatest height. And once the Torah was given, this is what we say. So the proper approach in now 7, the proper approach is to involve ourselves with the body, with the animal soul, and one's portion in this world. And in this manner, one prepares oneself to receive the Torah with joy that continues throughout the world. Imagine if we had an adversary that's coming up against us, about to punch us. And instead of running away, what do? We transform that person for our benefit. We overpower that person. What happens then? We feel so much stronger than if we ran away. Now, sometimes we have to run away. Sometimes the adversary is too great. The physical temptation is too strong for us to be able to fight with it and to overcome it. We get it. But that's not the normal way of the world. Normally, we have to face the challenger and work with it. Face the material world and utilize it for our benefit. Face our body and involve it in helping us serve God better. Not running away from body, but to elevate it. And this is how we get ready for Shvuos. By recognizing that God, and God's infinite wisdom, what did God do? God took his precious gift and he brought it down on Mount Sinai. He gave it to us. Don't you think the Torah would have been a better place when it was up in the heavens together with the angels, not giving the Torah or any human being the opportunity to corrupt the Torah or to utilize it for selfish reasons? And we found over the years, many people have taken this precious gift of the Torah and completely taken the words and misused them, used it for their benefit, to steal from people, to cheat from people, whatever it was. How many times did people use religion for selfish reasons. Yet God said, I'm willing to take that risk. Because in order to attain true holiness, that is only through us using the physical world. Can someone sometimes abuse that? Yes. But more often than not, we will be much higher and much more spiritual as a result of that. And I'm willing to take that risk. There's a story that is told that the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, began to teach Chassidus. And he began to disseminate his teachings. And some of his students came to him and says, Rebbe, we have a major problem. Now that you're printing your writings, what's happening is that some of the copies are being dropped on the floor and people are trampling on it. It's such holy teachings of the Torah. It's not respectful for it to be on the floor. Maybe stop printing your teachings and this way it will never fall on the floor. It may reach less people, that's true, but at least it's not going to be desecrated. So Alter Rebbe said, I'll answer you with an example. An example goes like this. He said there was once a king that his son became very sick. And the king looked for the best doctor to heal his son, the prince. Every doctor came, tried another medicine, nothing helped, and the child is getting weaker and weaker. And the king does not know what to do. His precious only child is dying. And he sends out the message that any doctor that can heal my child, I'll reward him with the best rewards, the most gifts, luxury, money, doesn't matter, whatever you can do, please save my prince, my only child. The most important thing for me is that my child should live. One day, this gentleman comes to the king's palace and he says, I have a cure for your son. So the guards quickly bring him into the king. The king says, please tell me anything. Tell me, what do you need for me to do it? He says, I have a cure, but it's going to require a great sacrifice on your part. So the king says, anything, no matter, tell me what. So the person said that I need to take your most precious stone that is in the center of your crown. The medicine is going to come from that stone. The king says, no problem, take it. He says, wait, it's not so simple. I have to take that stone, grind it up, basically destroy that stone. That's the most precious stone, the most expensive stone that you own. So the center of your crown, obviously you're going to put the nicest thing you own in the center of the crown, right? That shows your luxury, your wealth. I need to take that, I need to grind it down into a liquid. The king says, I don't care anything to save my child. He said, but the king says, your son is so weak. The doctor tells the king that maybe nothing will even go into his mouth. We may be grinding up that stone for nothing. However, if one drop gets into the prince's mouth, that can save the prince. King says, it's worth it. It's worth it to grind it up, destroy it. I don't care what the value is. Even if everything falls on the floor, but if one drop can go in and my son is saved, I'm willing to do that sacrifice. Now, Alter Rebbe said the same thing is also with our world today. One may ask, why would God take his precious gift, the most precious, dear thing to God, the Torah, and give it to us in this world, 2020, when we have so many distractions? We live in such a world of such material wealth and material involvement. We think about physical things that make us feel good, that have nothing to do with holiness. Why would God give us such a precious gift? Maybe when he saw our generation, you should say, forget it, I'm taking it back. I don't want you to waste my gift. You may spill it on the floor, you may grind it up, chew it up, and it may go to waste. But the reason is because if one drop penetrates us, it has the ability to heal us. His ability to uplift us and to elevate us. And God says, for that one drop, it's worth it. It's worth it. Because we're so important to God. We are his only child. We're his prince. He says, if one drop of Torah can elevate us, can make us a better person, I'm willing to sacrifice everything. And so when it comes to holiday of Shavuos, we say, you know what, God, my job is, I see, not to run away from the world and to run to the Himalayas or to somewhere, meditate on top of the mountain, but it's to engage in business and commerce and with other people, be involved with the world, and yet through that, elevate the body that you give me, the physical things that you give me, and utilize it. This is why it comes Shvuos. We eat blintzes and cheesecake and ice cream, all these good stuff that one thinks are material luxuries that simply fill our stomachs. But the truth is, they're actually tremendously spiritually uplifting things that we do, obviously in moderation. But certainly that's what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks, Rabbi.
You're good. All right. Everyone have a good day and a good week, and we'll see you.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye. Good seeing you. All right.
Thank you. That was very nice. Thank you.
Ma. Thank you.
I loved it.
Good, good. You doing good?
Thank God. Thank God.
Good. Oh, what? I forgot to ask you. What did the doctor say?
I didn't get the results yet.
Okay.
Takes a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I'll let you know as soon as I get it.
Okay. Very good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.